You never signed up for their fears, for their regrets, for their unfinished stories, but you were assigned anyway, a contract written, before you had a voice, before you knew who you were. It didn't come with papers. It came with expectations, with glances, with silence, with emotional debts you didn't create, but were taught to repay. You inherited a position, a role, a set of invisible rules. Don't outgrow us. Don't expose our pain. Don't change what we built. And without knowing, you adapted, you complied, you played the part. That kept the system intact, at the cost of your own becoming. This video is about that contract, the one you didn't ask for, but have been unconsciously upholding. It's time to see it, name it, and burn it. Not in anger, not in rebellion, but in cold, sovereign clarity. Because you weren't born to fulfill someone else's unfinished life. You were born to finish your own. SDP-001. Bloodline Contract. Burn sequence initiated. Part 1. What is a bloodline contract? A bloodline contract isn't written on paper. It's written in expectation, in silence, in unspoken agreements that you absorb before you even understand words. It's the contract that says, you will carry what we couldn't heal. You will not leave the path we chose. You will not question the sacrifices made for you. It's the invisible law. Stay loyal, stay predictable, stay inside the emotional architecture that built this family's survival, even if that survival requires the death of your authenticity. The bloodline contract isn't about love. It's about preservation, preserving legacy, preserving appearance, preserving silence. You don't get to choose your terms. You don't get to renegotiate. You're expected to inherit the weight, carry the shame, reinforce the narrative, not because you agreed to, but because you exist. It's not just rules, it's emotional conditioning. You don't just act loyal, you feel guilty when you even think of stepping outside the design, because the contract was wired into your nervous system before you ever learned. You had the right to refuse. You're not just disobeying. When you choose yourself, you're breaking generational agreements that were never meant to be broken. And that's why it feels so heavy, so wrong, so disloyal. Not because it is, but because the contract was written to make you feel that way. If you never examine it, you spend your life performing duties you were never meant to carry. If you never burn it, you live half alive, bound by promises you never consciously made. Part 2. How the bloodline contract was imprinted into you. You didn't sign it, you absorbed it. Through moments so small, so ordinary, that you didn't even realize. They were training you to obey. It wasn't declared, it was implied every time you made them proud for choosing what they wanted, and felt the withdrawal when you chose otherwise. Every time you sensed the unspoken rule, if you stay close to the story, you stay loved. But if you diverge, you risk exile. It was imprinted through praise that came with conditions, silence that froze you when you spoke your truth, disappointment masked as protection, guilt disguised as tradition. They didn't have to chain you, they taught you to chain yourself. You learned to anticipate their emotions, to edit your dreams before you ever spoke them, to shrink your rebellion into something polite and manageable. You learned that your safety depended on your loyalty, not loyalty to your soul, loyalty to their comfort, their legacy, their unfinished healing. Every time you obeyed, without being asked, every time you sacrificed, without questioning, every time you shrank, without protest, you reinforced the contract, line by line, reflex by reflex, until it became a part of how you breathe. That's how it was installed, not with force, with emotional economics. Be good, and you'll be loved. Be different, and you'll be abandoned. You didn't agree. You adapted. Because when you're young, belonging feels like survival, and survival writes contracts faster than any words could. Part 3. Symptoms you're still carrying the bloodline contract. You think you're living freely, but the contract still hums. Beneath your choices, beneath your hesitations, beneath your dreams you postpone, without even knowing why. Here's how you know. It's still active. You feel responsible for carrying family burdens. You feel it, the weight that isn't yours, the expectation to fix what's broken, to hold what was dropped, to succeed not just for you, but for them. You're not just living your life, you're carrying legacies, even when no one asks you to. You sabotage your own expansion to avoid outgrowing them. You sense it every time you level up, a guilt, a hesitation, a second guessing, not because you're not ready, but because part of you still believes, if I move too far ahead, I betray where I came from. Success becomes heavy. Freedom feels selfish, not because it is, but because the contract said so. You live with a low-grade sense of emotional debt. No matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. You visit, you call, you support, you succeed, but the meter never hits zero. There's always an unspoken balance. You're trying to settle. But the truth is, it was designed never to be settled. You filter your choices through the question, what will they think? Not because you want their advice, not because you need their blessing, but because somewhere inside you still believe, I owe them my alignment, or I lose my belonging. And so you choose carefully, timidly, half-heartedly, to stay connected to a system that only loved you conditionally. You feel an invisible loyalty to old pain. You stay in places too long. You stay in dynamics too tight. You tolerate dysfunction too quietly, because breaking free would mean acknowledging that you were never supposed to stay stuck in the first place, and that realization feels heavier than the familiar suffering. These aren't random struggles, they're signals, proof that the bloodline contract still holds a signature inside you, not because you believe in it, but because you were wired to confuse survival with loyalty. Part 4. Why you must burn the contract. You can't negotiate with a contract you never consciously agreed to. You can't edit it. You can't soften it. You can't make it more reasonable. It was designed to bind you, not to guide you, not to protect you, not to honor you. The bloodline contract isn't about your evolution. It's about their survival. It demands your loyalty at the cost of your expansion, your obedience, at the cost of your sovereignty, your sacrifice, at the cost of your truth, and as long as it lives inside you. It caps your becoming. You don't just pay in guilt, you pay in diminished dreams, diluted truth, delayed destiny. Because every time you choose comfort over confrontation, alignment over authenticity, familiarity over freedom. You re-sign the contract, line by line, life by life. This isn't about disrespect, it's about liberation. You honor your ancestors best, not by repeating their survival tactics, but by becoming what they never had the freedom to even imagine. You don't heal the bloodline by staying bound to its old scripts. You heal it by ending the cycle it never questioned. The contract was built on scarcity, fear, obligation. You were built for sovereignty, creation, expansion. You cannot serve both. One has to burn. And when you burn the bloodline contract, you don't destroy your family. You destroy the illusion that you must stay small to stay loyal, and from those ashes, you rise clean, unbound, unapologetic. Part 5. How to burn the bloodline contract. You don't dissolve the bloodline contract by being angry, by explaining, by waiting for permission. You dissolve it by revoking consent, consciously, ruthlessly, permanently. Here's how. Step 1. Identify the contract clauses. List them, call them out. Every inherited rule, every silent expectation. You must stay close. You must be the healer. You must not shine too brightly. You must carry the shame we buried. Write them down. No excuses, no justifications. Expose the hidden agreements. Step 2. Declare the contract null and void. Say it out loud. I revoke all unconscious agreements that demand I sacrifice my truth for loyalty to a system I did not choose. I return all inherited burdens. I reclaim all energy bound to roles that are not aligned with my soul. You're not seeking their approval. You're reclaiming your own authority. Step 3. Symbolically burn it. Ritual matters. Take the list. Burn it physically. Watch it disintegrate. Not to hurt them. Not to reject your blood, but to sever the invisible ties that have kept your spirit. Negotiating survival instead of living sovereignty. Step 4. Live differently, immediately. Contracts aren't broken in thought. They're broken in behavior. Start doing what the old contract forbids. Speak when silence was expected. Choose joy where duty was demanded. Shine without dimming yourself for their comfort. Walk paths they never dared to imagine. Every action is a signature on your new covenant, one between you and your true self. Step 5. Accept the fallout. Not everyone will applaud. Some will pull back. Some will accuse you. Some will mourn the version of you that complied so well. Let them. You're not betraying them. You're betraying the prison, and that's a loyalty you owe no one. You burn the bloodline contract, not to destroy where you came from, but to fully embody where you were always meant to go. Part 6. You were not born to fulfill a contract. You didn't sign. You were not born to carry ancestral debts, to fulfill someone else's unlived dreams, to complete a script written by fear, silence, and survival. You were born to remember who you were before the contract was handed to you. You never agreed to stay small, to stay silent, to stay safe at the cost of your own expansion. You never consented to bind your spirit to a legacy that asked you to trade truth For acceptance, you were conditioned, programmed, rewarded for submission. But deep down, you always knew there was more. Breaking the bloodline contract isn't betrayal, it's alignment. It's honoring your ancestors by becoming the first to stop mistaking endurance for destiny. It's honoring your future lineage by ensuring they inherit freedom, not unfinished fear. You owe loyalty to no system that demanded your self-abandonment. As proof of your love, you owe allegiance only to the truth of your own becoming, and from this point forward, you move without guilt, without apology, without needing anyone to understand, because your life isn't a repayment, it's a declaration. CTA. For the next 72 hours, walk like your soul was never leased. Speak like your voice was never collateral. Move like your destiny was never bound to a contract. You didn't choose because you weren't born. To inherit chains, you were born. To break them,